You are listening to WTUZ Radio Podcast.
Welcome to WTUZ Radio Podcast. I am your host, Rhonda. Today's topic, we're going to talk a little bit about DNA again. And shout out to Sis Tressie. She sent me this article. Found it really, really interesting. I know a couple of weeks ago, we talked about CRISPR, which Sis Tressie gave us that information, which was really, really mind-blowing. I will make sure I put the information to that particular podcast into this podcast. And with CRISPR, that is a particular technology that they have been working on for quite some time. I say quite some time, where they can literally alter DNA. So essentially, cut out strands of DNA and replace it with other things. In the article, they were slanting it towards weeding out or cutting out defective parts of the DNA for health purposes. But eventually in the article, they also got down to talking about genetic engineering and essentially creating new beings. So we're going to keep a close eye on this as far as DNA to see what they have going on. I personally think it's a combination of things. Of course, they are trying to do their altering. And again, none of this technology is new, in my opinion. I believe in what they are calling mythology in the ancient world, specifically Mesopotamia. This is the technology that was used by these beings, and I'm just going to say at this point, invaders that have been renamed aliens all the way to gods. Okay, I believe that these particular beings just were able to come from another dimension / solar system with this particular technology, and this is the technology they were using then. So with that said, we're going to get started on this particular article. Okay, here we go. So this is from Live Science. It came out 3 days ago. And this is new study provides first evidence of non-random mutations in DNA. This goes against one of the key assumptions of the theory of evolution. Genetic changes that crop up in an organism's DNA may not be completely random, new research suggests. That would pin one of the key assumptions of the theory of evolution. Researchers studying the genetic mutation in a common roadside weed, thale, have discovered that the plant can shield the most essential genes in its DNA from the changes while leaving other sections of its genome to build up more alterations. So in other words, which it's interesting that they're saying this, is that your genetic DNA code can change itself. So it can upgrade itself. Find that interesting because in the metaphysics / spiritual world, we have been talking about that for years, about getting genetic upgrades, about your DNA being upgraded, and about how your consciousness plays a huge role in that as well as the frequency vibration of the planet. Okay. And more importantly, this is why it is key, is you as an individual in this realm to really take seriously your bloodline, your genetics, who you are choosing to have children with. If this is serious business, this is down at a genetic level, okay? Because unwanted traits can literally be tied to DNA. All right, so let's continue. I was totally surprised by the non-random mutations we discovered. Lead author Gray Monroe, a plant scientist at the University of California, Davis told Live Science, ever since high school biology, I have been told that mutations are random. Random mutations are an important part of the theory of evolution by natural selection, in which mutations give rise to adaptations, that are passed on to offspring and alter their chances of survival. Scientists have assumed that these mutations were random and that the first step in evolution by natural selection was therefore also random. But this may not be entirely true, the new study suggests. The idea of random mutation has been around for over 100 years in biology and is something you hear so often as a student that it is easy to take it for granted, Monroe said. Even as a practicing geneticist and evolutionary biologist, I had never seriously questioned the idea. The new finding does not disprove or discredit the theory of evolution, and the researchers said randomness still plays a big role in mutations. Okay, they say randomness. I don't think it's randomness. I think it is that particular species, including plants, making the best decision for its DNA based on the frequency of the planet for survival, and making the best decision for its DNA based on if that current DNA string did not have the necessary traits for ultimate survival. So no, I do not think it's randomness. I think that it is nature correcting herself. As she always does, she has the power to do that. And yes, I am purposely putting she in there. So no, I do not think it's randomness. I think it is the cleanup of the DNA, providing the strongest set of genetics for survival. Which goes back to my original statement, how folks should take their bloodline, whom they are procreating with / having children with, extremely serious. Because if we want to be really honest with ourselves and each other, as a collective, we have allowed a lot of junk to inhabit the planet because of the lack of the lapsadaisyness of who we choose to mate with and bring lives/souls on the planet. Okay? And so now the planet is correcting herself. And I told you all, I've been telling you all for years that this was going to happen. And I also told you it was going to get down to the DNA level. I even told you that it was going to get down to the plant level, where it's going to get to the point as the planet continues to rise to correct herself and the plants adapt to that if you have not risen to correct yourself down to your DNA level, you will not even be able to eat from the planet. That's including plants, that's including animals. Because every species' goal is for survival. The planet itself is a living organism. Okay, so let's continue. But the study does not show that these genetic alterations are more complex than scientists previously believed. DNA errors. There are plenty of chances for genetic mutations and even errors to occur during the life of an organism. DNA is a fragile molecule. On average, the DNA in a single cell is damaged between 1,000 and 1 million times every day, Monroe said. DNA also has to be copied each time a cell divides, which can introduce copying errors. Okay, so if y'all want to know where they get all of this computer technology from, I'm telling you, all of that stuff is based on you. Okay, so making copies of things, it's equivalent to having copies of servers, etc. Luckily for humans and all other organisms, our cells can counteract a lot of this damage. Our cells are working constantly to correct DNA and have evolved complex molecular machines. DNA repair proteins to search for mistakes and make repairs. Okay? So that's naturally what our body is doing. However, DNA repair proteins are not a foolproof solution and cannot fix all mistakes. If damage or copying errors are not repaired, they cause a mutation, a change in the DNA sequence, Monroe said. There are two main types of mutations: somatic mutations, which cannot be passed on to offspring, and germ-like mutations, in which offspring can inherit the DNA error from a mutated gene in a parent. Germ-like mutations are what fuel evolution by natural selection and become more or less common in a population based on how they affect the carrier's ability to survive. So they just proved my point here, the importance of who you choose to procreate with. This is down to the DNA level, family. Not all mutations have the potential to alter an organism's chance of survival. Mutations cause major changes to an organism only when they occur in genes, sections of DNA that code for a particular protein. Most of the human genome is made of non-gene DNA, Monroe said. Non-random pattern. In the new study, researchers decided to test randomness of mutations by investigating Rather, mutations were happening evenly between gene and non-gene regions of DNA in the genomes of theocrests. Oh, yeah, I know this weed now that I see it. Okay. Theocrest is a great model organism for studying mutation because its genome has only around 120 million base pairs. For comparison, the human genome has 3 billion base pairs, which make it easier to sequence the plant's DNA. It also has a very short lifespan, which means that mutation can rapidly accumulate across multiple generations, Monroe said. So, y'all peep how it is talking about, and it's just this little short paragraph, how it talks about your genetics impacting across multiple generations, i.e., your bloodline. This is very, very serious business, folks. Over 3 years, the researchers grew hundreds of plants in laboratory conditions for multiple generations. In total, the researchers sequenced 1,700 genomes and found more than 1 million mutations. But when they analyzed these mutations, they found that parts of the genomes containing genes had much lower rates of mutation than non-gene regions. We think it is likely that other organisms could also have non-random genetic mutations, Monroe said. We have actually been following up with our study by investigating this question in other species and are finding the results that suggest non-random mutation is not unique to Arabidopus. However, the researchers suspect that the level of non-randomness among different species may not be the same. Protecting essential genes. The non-random pattern in mutations between gene and non-gene regions of DNA suggests that there is a defensive mechanism in place to prevent potential disastrous mutation. In genes coding for proteins essential for survival and reproduction, mutations are more likely to have harmful effects, potentially causing disease and even death, Monroe said. Our results show that genes, and essentially genes in particular, experience a lower mutation rate than non-gene regions. Okay, so I'm just going to say in that particular plant. The result is that offsprings have a lower chance of inheriting a harmful mutation. Researchers found that to protect themselves, essential genes send out special signals to DNA repair proteins. This signal is not done by the DNA itself, but by histones, specialized proteins DNA wraps around to make up chromosomes. Based on the results of our study, we found that gene regions, especially for the most biologically essential genes, are wrapped around the histones with particular chemical marks, Monroe said. All right, sorry about that. Just had a coughing, sneezing, stuffy nose moment there. All right, so what are we saying? Researchers found, I think I read this, but I apologize, I have to reread it. I can't remember if I left off here. Researchers found that to protect themselves, essential genes send out special signal to DNA repair proteins. This signal is not done by the DNA itself, but by histones, specialized protein DNA wraps around to make up the chromosome. Okay, and so, yeah, we did read this, but I'll just go ahead. Based on the results of our study, we found that gene regions, especially for the most biologically essential genes, are wrapped around histones with particular chemical marks, Monroe said. We think these chemical marks are acting as molecular signals to promote DNA repair in these regions. The idea of histones having unique chemical markers is not new, Monroe said. Previous studies into mutation in cancer patients have also found that these chemical markers can affect whether DNA repair proteins fix mutations properly, he added. Wow. However, this is the first time these chemical markers have been shown to influence genome-wide mutation patterns and, as a result, evolution by natural selection. So let's just go over that again. However, this is the first time these chemical markers have been shown to influence genome-wide mutation patterns and, as a result, evolution by natural selection. It's no joke, family. Again, the planet is a living organism. Your DNA must be adapted to the planet's environment. Okay? And I feel what has been going on for quite some time, we have a lot of genome or genetics that have been allowed to be on the planet, and it's not suitable for the planet's environment. And all of us have felt that impact. Okay? So in other words, when I call folks degenerate, I be meaning what I say. I be meaning that right down to folks' DNA. My cousin would say, can't get right. Same difference. Degenerate, can't get right. All right. Potential implications. The researchers hope their findings could eventually be used to make improvements in human medicine. Mutations affect human health in so many ways, being a cause of cancer, genetic disease, and aging. Aging? Huh? Aging? Are you suggesting that aging is a genetic mutation or genetic defect? Is that what you're suggesting? Would that not mean that those ancient texts and even the Bible, which the Bible is nothing but a derivative and a heavily manipulated derivative of various ancient texts that they are calling mythologies, when they spoke of folks living a very long time and that the Lord took away that ability. And I say, when I speak of the Lord, I am talking about those high-level scientists that set themselves up as the Lord, altered DNA, or were doing genetic engineering down to the DNA level. So I find that interesting that they put in there aging. Okay. And as far as dis-ease or disease, we know that external factors causes the dis-ease. So that means the manipulation of the food, as well as the environment itself, the air, the water, the materials that we interact with every day, on down to the vibratory or the vibration rate of the planet, which has been manipulated. So all of that causes dis-ease in the body, and your body is constantly fighting against these things. Your DNA, down to the DNA level, trying to repair itself. And this has been happening across multiple generations. Because the dis-ease for those that are natural to the planet, and just the general suffering to those natural of the planet, where it is painful for us to be in lower vibrational realms, helps the degenerates, plural, thrive. So in other words, their DNA genetic makeup was not supposed to be on the planet in the first place. But now it is all starting to be cleaned up. So let's continue. Being able to protect certain regions of the genome from mutations could help prevent or treat these problems, he added. However, more research into animal genomes is needed before researchers can tell if the same non-random mutation occurs in humans. Our discoveries were made in plants and do not give rise to new treatments, Monroe said, but they change our fundamental understanding of mutations and inspire many new research directions. The researchers also think the chemical signals given off by essential genes could be used to enhance genetic editing technologies that could help us create crops that are more nutritious and resilient to climate change, Monroe said. So gene editing technology, when you hear that, that is referring to CRISPR. Okay. So all they're trying to do is, because the planet's vibration is rising, they are trying to use this CRISPR technology to alter the degenerate genes that shouldn't have been on the planet in the first doggone place. Trying to alter the degenerates genes in order for that set of genes to continue to be able to live on the planet as the planet's vibration changes. Not gonna work, but that is ultimately what they're trying to do with the CRISPR gene editing technology. Okay, so we're going to keep an eye on this, because I'm suspecting we're going to keep hearing about more and more quote quote breakthrough scientific discoveries regarding gene editing, etc., etc. So again, thank you, Sis Tressie, for this information. This is from Live Science, and the name of this one is New Study Provides First Evidence of Non-Random Mutations in DNA. And this came out 3 days ago. So thank you all, family, so much for being with me on this Wednesday morning. as I'm congested. This is Rhonda with WTUZ Radio Podcast. If you are not subscribed to us, I highly encourage you to subscribe, like, and share the video. I wish everyone well. Peace and love.